welcome to your reading. This is going to be your geoscope for the upcoming lunar eclipse in Capricorn, which happens on the 5th of July 2020. So as you probably know by now, I view eclipses in pairs. So this Capricorn eclipse will be the twin to the Cancer solar eclipse that we had at the solstice on the 21st of June 2020. So if you haven't watched that video, I do urge you to go and watch it, because that will show you what energy is coming in for the next 6 months. And this geoscope is designed to show you what is leaving or being released at the lunar eclipse. So very often this type of energy will have a sort of 2-week duration as opposed to the 6 month duration of a solar eclipse. And it can sometimes be closing out things that we began when we had a corresponding solar eclipse in the same sign. So we had one in July of we had one in January of 2019 and again in December. So it could be related to those, just something to bear in mind. But let's get into your reading. I've had a quartz shard just kind of resetting the energy of the cards. So let's see what wants to be released or what wants to come to light at the lunar eclipse in Capricorn for Taurus. And do bear in mind as well that when I'm doing these videos, I'm really doing them as if you have Taurus rising. So if Taurus is not your ascending sign, I do urge you to watch the geoscope for whatever your ascendant is. And if you don't know what that is, then it's worth just going to one of those free astrology sites that will calculate your chart for you, such as astro.com, because then the house placements will be correct. So I'll actually be talking about the right life areas for you, as opposed to your sun sign, which could be in any of your astrological houses. I've also done some videos, actually, while I'm thinking about it. I've also done some video horoscopes for the upcoming 6-month cycle, and those are accessible for members of my website. So if you haven't subscribed to my website, then think about it, because it's free and it will give you access to all those exclusive things that you wouldn't otherwise have access to. Okay, I think that's shuffled quite nicely. Let's cut the cards. Right, let's see what's going on. Interesting. So Taurus, you could be keen to make a change of direction, or kind of walk away from something or walk towards something. This is the moon in Cancer, so it's the natural position of the moon. It's the opposite position to where the sun, the moon will be at the lunar eclipse incidentally. So that may be significant, this idea of inversions or kind of opposites. But definitely you're keen to make progress or to sort of move on, which is a good sign. So when it comes to 4th house, so this is family, roots, legacies, the past, where we live or where we feel we fit in or belong, or where we come from, we've got Acquisitio. So this is Jupiter in its natural sign of Sagittarius. It's fire energy. This is water energy. So this is very positive from a financial point of view. This is about gain. So you could be acquiring a property. You could be deciding to buy a home for yourself, perhaps for the first time, but certainly you're expanding when it comes to family and property. You may also be thinking about perhaps having another child or having a child, but somehow extending your family. So this is really positive energy. Right, so here we have the South Node of the Dragon, which I equate with lunar eclipses, because South Nodes are really about release. It's about those kind of karmic lessons or contracts that we are finished with, that we've kind of learned our lessons from, and we're ready to move on from. So this says to me that more than likely this particular lunar eclipse will be about releasing matters to do with significant relationships. So this can be, committed long-term romantic partnerships, such as a marriage or somebody that you've cohabited with, but it could also be the status of a particular relationship. So you may decide, if things have been fairly casual, that you want to sort of tie the knot, perhaps if you're thinking about having children. It could also be that you're walking away from a relationship, or that you're walking away from a business partnership. Generally speaking, it's any kind of partnership or one-to-one relationship that is significant and ongoing, that usually either involves a contract or there's been a long history between you in terms of your interactions. Interesting. So you are keen to start a cycle, Taurus, when it comes to matters to do with career. And, I will say that this is also to do with your vocation, your soul purpose, the direction that you see your future kind of heading in. So you're very keen, actually, to walk away from the old and start the new, which is interesting, Taurus, because usually of these zodiac signs, you tend to be the sign that is quite resistant to change. But here we are really seeing you keen to let go of the old and embrace the new. So that's wonderful. I think possibly this is the influence of Uranus, which has been moving through your sign for some years now, I think since about 2018. So, perhaps this has been on your mind for a while, actually, and you have kind of built up enough momentum that you're sort of ready to make this transition. So I'm really pleased for you. It's kind of out with the old, in with the new, and that's right. You're raring to go and move forward, and you're also sort of open to receiving, when it comes to family and home. So that's great. So I'm just going to pause the video quickly while I do your conversions, and I'll be back shortly to do the rest of your reading. Hi Taurus, welcome back to reading. So we've now got all the geomantic figures converted and in the correct house positions. So let's dive into reading. So the first place to look, of course, is with the positions of the eclipse. So for you, this happens across your 3rd and your 9th houses. Now, traditionally, these are the houses of ideas, communication, and travel. So this is about movement. So it's interesting that we've got fear here in your 1st house, which seems to be your kind of primary motivation at the lunar eclipse itself. Now, we do have fear repeated again in your 5th house, which I find quite interesting. So this perhaps tells us, where you want movement or progress to happen, or perhaps where you're moving on. Now, the 5th house has to do with children. It has to do with creative projects, as well as holidays and hobbies, new environments. So it's really what brings us pleasure or joy. So on some level, along with an ending that's happening when it comes to long-term relationships, there does seem to be change when it comes to the 5th house. And, this could be, that you potentially are kind of relocating, or perhaps you're traveling, you're deciding you need a holiday, perhaps after quite a stressful patch. I don't think the first half of the year was particularly easy for anyone. And I think as travel restrictions lift, possibly, you're keen to sort of get away. So that's one way this energy could work. Of course, it could be that you want to move on creatively. Perhaps on some level, you kind of feel as though you have got a little bit stale in this area, particularly if you work in a creative field and you're keen to venture into new pastures, and that could be why we've got this new cycle starting for you in terms of your career, particularly if you are in something creative. But needless to say, your actual eclipse houses are very interesting. So this is Capricorn, this is where the moon will be at the time of the eclipse, and this is Cancer, so this is where the sun will be at the time of the lunar eclipse. So it's interesting, we've got loss here with the sun, and we've got gain here in where the moon is going to be. Now, these two are kind of almost natural partners when it comes to themes. So it's really interesting. It's almost as if what you may lose or appear to lose on some level actually leads to gain on another level. And when it comes to the 3rd and the 9th houses, the 9th definitely trumps the 3rd. So the 3rd is really about communication and ideas and self-expression, as well as messages. It can also be vehicles. It can also have to do with close relatives and our immediate neighborhood. Whereas the 9th house is the house of higher learning. So this is elevated ideas like philosophy as opposed to facts. And so this is learning and this is wisdom. So, I think as we kind of grow older, sometimes we realize that if we end up in disputes with people, then sometimes you've got to kind of lose the battle to win the war. And that may be, where this is kind of going. It could be that you may lose an argument, but ultimately, you will come out and prove to be the victor when it comes to your principles, for example. But equally, this could be about a legal suit or a domestic, like what do you call it, a lawsuit that has to do with alimony or divorce or division of assets, perhaps at the end of a business partnership. And the reason that I say that is because we do have a missio here also repeated in your second house. Now, this is the house of earned income and it's the house of possessions. So, it could be that you are losing, you're having to give up a car, for example, as part of a divorce settlement, or some kind of the end of some kind of business partnership. Maybe you worked for a company that you're now leaving and you're having to give back the company car. That could be one way this sort of energy works. You may be worried about, are you going to be okay financially? But, I think with Acquisitio sort of here as your opposite, so as where the moon is going to be, it does suggest that on some level, whatever you feel like you're losing, you're going to gain on another level. So, if we think about what the sun and the moon actually represent, the sun represents kind of the logical sphere, the conscious mind, the ego, and then the moon represents the emotions, the heart, the subconscious mind, as well as, what is not always necessarily immediately revealed or obvious. So it's our gut instincts, it's what we sense but can't always articulate. And, as we've discovered in recent years, the subconscious mind is often far more powerful than the conscious mind. And of course, if it comes to a situation where you're sort of losing the battle of the ego, but you're actually gaining when it comes to higher principles or being in your truth, then I think it's a no-brainer as to which you'd rather kind of be aligned with. But that's just one way that this energy could work. The other thing that could kind of add another layer of meaning is that at the time of the eclipse, we're going to be having Jupiter and Pluto also in the sign of Capricorn. They will be coming off of a conjunction to each other, which perfects on the 30th of June. So not too long before this particular lunar eclipse. And of course, Jupiter and Pluto move quite slowly, so the energy from that conjunction will still be kind of active. So that's about a kind of major reset when it comes to your beliefs, your principles, perhaps even where you live. This is foreign connections. So it could be, as I say, that you are, because we've got this Acquisitio echoed in your fourth house, it may be that you're relocating. It may be that you are moving out of your immediate neighborhood. So this is sort of third house, which is why we've got this loss here. And you're relocating somewhere overseas. That could be another way that this is working. And it might help to explain why we've got Carse, which is a loss, in your sixth house, because your everyday routine would change, your job might change, where you live will change. So this could be, a relocation, and this is emphasized, as I say, by Via, which is about movement and about travel. So yes, it could well be that you are leaving behind your old life and you're moving somewhere, that you feel will really enhance your life, where you can blossom, and that forms a base where you can kind of expand much more than perhaps where you were before. And that's certainly, echoed in Acquisitio in the fourth house. So, even if there is some loss, I think ultimately there's a lot of gain to be had here. And it's really good that you are pivoting in such a way that you are so focused on, what you are starting rather than what you're kind of leaving behind, Taurus. Because, of course, the missio is Venus in Taurus. So, as I say, it is quite difficult for you sometimes to leave behind the old and embrace the new. But here you are really doing that. And I think it's emphasized by Uranus in Taurus here, you know, well, no, by Via, which is sort of emphasizing this energy, your Taurian energy. Now, I think the reason why I said Uranus in Taurus is because Uranus will indeed be in your sign and has been since 2018. And, you know, so this is what I think has kind of built up momentum and allowed you to be more fluid when it comes to, you know, embracing change. And at the full moon, the Uranus will be making a trine to the moon. So this is sort of emphasizing positive changes and really asking you to be adventurous and to sort of take a leap of faith and open yourself up to these new possibilities. Because if we look at the outcome, they are extremely positive. We've got Fortuna Major twice. Now, Fortuna Major is one of the most positive of the geomantic figures. This is the Sun in Leo, so this is about shining brightly. It's about success. It's about an enhanced sense of confidence. It's also about achievement. So, you know, if you do have this emphasis here in your 10th house of wanting to kind of start fresh and have great aspirations for the future, this certainly, the future looks very, very bright. Interestingly, we've got the Sun and the Moon here. So this is the Sun in Leo, and then your judge, your outcome is the Moon in Cancer. So we've got the Sun and the Moon as your part of your final outcome, which I think is wonderful confirmation about the importance of these eclipses for you. So Fortuna Major, because it's associated with the Sun, I would say that it may also be indicating a time period. So it could be indicating Leo season, which happens later in July when the Sun ingresses into Leo. So that may be a significant time when you start to really see the rewards for your kind of past efforts. And then Populace is about kind of going with the sort of conventional wisdom. So it's about crowds, it's about kind of moving with the crowd. So in other words, almost being a part of the collective. And of course, you know, the moon and eclipses sort of in general, lunar phases tend to be events that move the collective in a way that perhaps the transitions of the other planets don't, because they tend to be a bit more personal in terms of inflection, whereas the, you know, the luminaries, the two lights, the Sun and the Moon, they tend to be more universal in terms of their archetypal sort of application. So I think what it's saying to you is, you know, when in doubt, if you have some kind of moral dilemma, go the route of conventional wisdom. You know, do the sort of done thing rather than try to be too different, because that will be kind of the way to go. In other words, don't reinvent the wheel. When it comes to, you know, moving ahead, just follow the signs and follow your kind of gut instincts, because the moon is as well those gut instincts, and all will turn out really well for you. So yes, I think extremely positive reading. And you know what's so interesting is we've got conjunctio in your 12th house, so it's as though things are really coming together for you in terms of your plans, and then, you know, the outside manifestations of them in reality. So a very, very positive reading, Taurus. I'm so pleased for you. And, you know, if you are at all wanting confirmation, then I do urge you to watch your geoscope for the solar eclipse in Cancer, just to remind yourself of the good things that are kind of coming in the new cycle that's starting for you, as well as watch my video horoscope for the 6-month cycle that started at the solstice eclipse, because that will kind of give you more about the astrology that's sort of happening, you know, between June and November. But anyway, I hope that's been helpful. If you've enjoyed this, if it's resonated, please hit the like button. If you are enjoying these geoscopes in general, then subscribe, because then you won't miss out. Particularly if you hit the bell, that means that you'll be notified when I do post new videos kind of going forward. But anyway, all the best for the upcoming lunar eclipse, and I'll catch you again in a couple of weeks for my new moon forecast